achieved.
What's going on, everyone? Today we'll be comparing features in Guild Wars 2 to World of Warcraft. Before we begin, I won't be bashing one game or the other. I will simply just be comparing aspects of the game that Blizzard and ArenaNet approach differently. This is to give insight to the people that know a lot about Guild Wars 2 and not so much about WoW, and vice versa. Some of the topics have already been brought up in our previous videos, but we will be bringing them up again to compare with WoW, so everyone knows what the differences are between the two games. The topics are in no particular order. I hope you enjoy. In WoW, you have to buy the box and pay a $15 subscription fee every month. This makes the player feel like they are obligated to play the game. For some, $15 a month is nothing. For others, it's more than they can handle.
Many whelps! Now handle it!
Either way, I think subscriptions worked for WoW because of its stellar reputation. All you have to do in Guild Wars 2 is buy the box, and that's it. No subscription fees, nothing at all. There is a cash shop in the game where you can buy aesthetics for your character, but that's it. You won't be buying gear that can only be bought with cash or anything that gives an unfair advantage. WoW, like most MMOs, has a system where each class is either a DPS, tank, or a healer, or can be all three if they talent for it. This is a very solid system that has worked for a while, and it makes large raids, which is WoW's biggest focus, possible. Although it is a smooth system, it can become very boring. In Guild Wars 2, every profession can fulfill every role. Although some professions might do jobs better than others, the possibilities are enormous. This makes combat a lot more interesting, because you always have to be on the move, you always have to avoid attacks, and you have to control enemies. ArenaNet said that they kinda have their own trinity, using terms damage, support, and control instead of DPS, tank, and healer. In WoW, there are two factions, and each faction has 6 races. Each of these races are given a certain amount of classes that they can be. There are also 10 classes in the game, each of which have 3 talent trees, which allows for more customization for the player. Guild Wars 2 has 5 races, and each race can play all of the 8 available professions. Instead of going against the opposing faction like WoW has it, Guild Wars 2 is based on fighting other servers. Each profession also has a trait line to further specialize their skills. This is a tricky one. WoW graphics are very cartoonish, which a lot of people like and some hate. But taking into consideration that the game came out all the way back in 2004, it is expected that WoW's graphics won't be as intense as games that come out around this time. Many people can still enjoy the game because of its low system requirements. Now onto Guild Wars 2 graphics. From a neutral perspective, I would assume that Guild Wars 2 would have better graphics just because of the year that it was released compared to WoW. Even if the graphics are better though, some people appreciate different art styles, so that's why graphics is really an opinion. Every WoW class has access to more than a handful of abilities, and they can use all of them whenever they'd like. The action bar in WoW can get a little out of hand, but most players can organize it to their liking and create binds for the abilities that they want binded. In Guild Wars 2, a profession's first 5 abilities are based on their weapon. The next 5 skills are chosen by the player depending on the player's profession and race. Although you can only choose 5 skills of your 10, there are a ton to choose from. The action bar is smaller than most are used to, but I think it will be a learning experience for all players to choose the right abilities before a fight. WoW's combat is very simple, but rewarding to those that are great at it. Knowing how to silence and lock enemies out of their spell school, slowing and immobilizing enemies, and knowing the right time to damage and crowd control. Guild Wars 2 is a bit more complex. All professions have abilities that they can combine together with other professions. Most abilities can be used on the move, and only a few require the player to stand still. All professions will also be able to dodge, which allows the profession to avoid incoming attacks. WoW has 11 primary crafting professions, 3 of which are gathering professions. A player can have 2 primary professions and any of the 4 secondary professions in the game. When creating an item in WoW, there's a chance that you get a skill point. Some items will always award a skill point, but once you hit a certain skill level, the percentage of getting a point will drop. In Guild Wars 2, there are 8 crafting disciplines. A player can have only 2 disciplines at a time, but can switch their disciplines whenever they want. When you switch disciplines, your skill points and patterns will be saved. Gathering is known by everyone and doesn't fill up one of the 2 slots. Crafting in Guild Wars 2 uses an experience system, so everything you make will get you closer to the next level. Arena in WoW is very fast paced and requires knowledge about every class you go up against. Every new season for Arena, players have to grind Honor, which is the currency for PvP equipment, for the new PvP gear that comes out that season. Players have to dedicate time to farming Honor and gaining Arena rating. In Guild Wars 2, the competitive game mode is Conquest. Teams will have to capture locations and be the first to gather 500 points. Competitive play will always be 5v5, and gear will not be a factor. All players will have access to the same gear, so it will be all about skill and teamwork. WoW's World PvP can take place anywhere in the world, depending on what type of server you are on. Players of the opposing faction can attack each other while they are leveling, so you always have to be on your toes. WoW also has dedicated areas to World PvP, where the 2 factions defend and attack points across the map. These battles take place about every 2 hours. Guild Wars 2 doesn't have opposing factions in the game, so you won't encounter any enemy players in the open world. They will rather have a 2-week-long event that happens in an area where 3 servers fight for resources. Once the event ends, another one will start up. In WoW, the experience cap for each level becomes larger, and towards the 80 to 85 range, each level can take up to several hours. The quests in WoW are very standard, having the player kill a certain amount of creatures and collecting a set amount of items from enemies. Guild Wars 2, on the other hand, doesn't have a scaling leveling curve. The experience cap stays the same for every level. The quests in the game are called dynamic events. These events give the player loot and gold as normal quests would, and also scale depending on the number of people present. That's all for this week, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you want more in-depth information about Guild Wars 2, check out our other videos. Don't forget to hit the like button below and to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all next week.